Hey Erra family, keep it high, keep it tight. My name is Jay Moore's Third Review Guy, reviewing music for the love of music, and I'm back again to bring you another video. And in this one, I'm going to be covering the brand new self-titled record by Erra. Fifth studio-length album by the Birmingham, Alabama band Erra, by far my most anticipated record stepping into this year. There was a lot of weariness from fans of this band going into this record, as there has been a bit of a lapse in the time between their last record, Neon, and this record, as well as the stepping away, the departure from their longtime label, Sumerian Records, and the signing to UNFD. But I think the anticipation kept swelling for fans and newcomers alike as they kept hearing the singles and saw that while Erra was going into a new direction, they weren't entirely forsaking anything that they had ever done prior. Very strong songwriting and Erra's ability to interweave these Djent riffs and melodies and harmonies and just a variety of heavy tones into one amalgamation that really felt like it had its own identity in a field that is very oversaturated and overplayed by bands that sound very formulaic and full of so many different patterns. Erra really did stand out amongst the pack, building up a fan base, and it's surprising that they are still even at this. The fact that they are still a band, that they are still a whole product, really is impressive to me, considering that they've went through vocalist after vocalist after vocalist and resignings and tumultuous lineup changes, members leaving, members joining. The fact that they've still been able to up the ante every single time, whether it be instrumentally, songwriting-wise, production-wise, it's hard not to just sort of sit in awe at their trajectory and be like, the fact that they are still at this is just insane. Coming from an extremely long-time fan of this band, so far as to say that I believe, in my opinion, they are my favorite band overall and one of the ones that mean the most to me, I'm not going to say that they haven't had some blunders through tracks or through albums. I feel like my worst to best really exhibited the fact that I think they do have some weaker moments and some weaker records. But on their self-titled record, which is their longest album to date, I think they are returning to their roots on Augment a little bit, but semi-progressing their sound even more so. It sort of feels like the culmination of every idea that was present on Neon, on Drift, and on Augment, brought together and refined. Certainly has a sensation to me, at least, as an admirer and a longtime fan of this band, that this record services as not so much as a continuation of their creative process, but more so a culmination of everything in their discography up until this point. There are musical moments that sound straight out of Augment, straight out of Drift, straight out of Neon. And I think without the artistic evolution that those records were able to sort of put them on a pedestal with, I'm not so sure that they'd be able to sound like this otherwise if they didn't have all of this past and all of this emotional baggage and all of this sort of maturity as artists on their shoulders. It has the indescribable paw print left on it of Erra, no doubt. But there is something that's full of more experience. There's something that is stickier about how these tracks come across. With new producers, I was very apprehensive about this record in the sense that I feel like you have to do a band like this justice with the production, specifically Erra, which has so many moving parts and so much technicality and fluidity to their sound that sticking in one place with the production and making it sort of unintelligible, I think would do so much harm to the overall sound and not do it enough justice. But luckily, everything is audible, everything is crisp as all hell and tight and fine-tuned, but not necessarily mechanical on too many occasions. I will say that a complaint for me personally is that as someone that has really loved this band's discography, there definitely is some moments here that have tinges that feel slightly less organic and more mechanical than ever before. It never oversteps the line of becoming mechanical, absolutely not. I don't think Erra even has that in them, but it is something that I took note of across this record. Otherwise, the balance of this record did really impress me. Usually Erra will sort of blend the heavy and the soft in one track. It will be a timeline and you can really see where a track starts and ends. The chorus and the bridge, it will all have this specific layering to it and this specific meticulous progression to it that the more times you listen to a track, you'll sort of see where they were coming from. But one thing is, this record kept me guessing. I think it is is the most unpredictable Erra has ever sounded, in the sense that they always feel like they're changing things up, and they'll have tracks like Scorpion Hymn, which is pretty much a just banger through and through and through, and it will come out of nowhere and hit you, and it'll be like, this track just keeps going. It is so hard, it is so heavy. But then you'll have the closer, which is absolutely beautiful, and even when the riff becomes a lot more melodic, similar to say what Dementia did when it ended out Augment, or The Hypnotist off of Drift, where it has a very climactic ending to it. It is theatrical and it is cinematic, but there's something supple and beautiful about it. And every time that you think you might know where Erra's about to take a track or where they're going to progress from a track to track, they really do hit you out of left field, and that's something I appreciate a lot as someone that's really come to understand most of Erra's sort of ideas and how they like to play. It's really easy to feel, even though, yes, they are technical, it's not hard to figure out their blueprint, their patterns. I was absolutely blown the fuck away when I stepped into this record, because the first track, Snowblood, I obviously knew about it because it was a single, but Gungrave blew me away. This has to be one of the finest written Erra tracks I've heard. Progressionally and musically, this track as a whole, even if it's not your type of thing, is so impressive in the way it's constructed and produced. It is so fluid and it's so vibrant, but there's still an unmeasured nature to it that makes it feel extremely staccato and all over the place and scatterbrained. And there is a lot of moments like that that remind me of something that could have been off of, say, their Moments of Clarity EP or Neon. Whereas the way that the instrumental sort of coincides with the vocals in the chorus of the track Lunar Halo, it also reminds me a lot of something that could have been on Drift. So I don't necessarily want to play favorites, and I don't want to play the comparison game too much, but as someone that's really deep dived into their discography in depth so many times throughout the years, I really do appreciate how far they've come to make a record that feels like everything and all of the best parts of their past material just put into one. And this record is strikingly beautiful. The poetic lyricism of Neon is here in spades, considering that they came from the Garrison Lee era in the past, where it was very much about mythology and it was very much about gods of the past and things of that nature. I really do think that Erra plays it a lot better when they do sound vulnerable, when they do come through with these interesting themes. But as opposed to something like Neon or Drift, which was a lot more emotionally vulnerable and poignant, the self-titled record deals with a lot of more complex themes and with technology and the modern age, and they tackle these topics in a way that sort of accompanies the music, and it doesn't just feel like a weird, disconnected, disjointed theme as opposed to what music you're getting. When you're reading along with these lyrics, you really are feeling that urgency and that atmosphere and that beauty that they pack into every single track through their production. I really want to highlight something about the vocals specifically that I thought was very interesting, and that is, I think that number one, Jesse Cash is doing a great job of not just pushing his vocals into the highest registers, soaring and trying to up the bar every single record so much on this record. Yes, he has his moments where he sounds so damn high in his register that he is one of the highest singers. It's straight out of like Seosin. But as opposed to past records and compared to past records, I think Jesse has a lot of shining moments where he goes into his lower range, where he really takes his time to sound silkier and smoother, and I think this benefits a lot of the tracks that he does this on, as opposed to just screaming his brains out when it comes to his singing. But perhaps more importantly with the vocals, and I hope I'm not the only one thinking this is JTKV's time to shine. He came through so much on this record and got the spotlight shined on him so much. He just is so bright on this record. I think that he probably is one of the best improvement stories. I have not been a big fan of him in Texas in July in the past, and for the most part, even though I really did enjoy him and his contributions onto Erra's work so far, I always thought that he was a step below Garrison Lee, and I hate to be the person that really compares vocalists like that, but me personally, I liked Garrison's range more, and I thought that he had more dynamics with his vocal range. But JT on this record expands that to levels that are so much fun, has such great chemistry with Jesse, and really just makes it a more fleshed out record, and him have more of a fleshed out, diverse musical and vocal palette. He goes into shrieks, he goes into growls, very deep guttural growls, he goes into mids, and he even sings on this record, which caught me so off guard. And he really has a wonderful singing voice, something I would love to see utilized on future Erra records. This self-titled is impressive to me, and it's difficult to find any faults, and that's not coming from a place of bias so much so as studying this band over such a long period of time and hearing what they've been able to do on this record. I am impressed by how full this record sounds and how it doesn't feel like it has that many really obvious flaws. I appreciate how unpredictable it is, but even so, there are some moments where it does feel sort of like I have heard an idea from Erra in the past and this just feels like a slightly tweaked version of it, but that really is in the finer details, and if you don't go nitpicking it like me, I don't think it's going to be an intrusive thing that bothers you that much. And if I really had to say anything, I would say the strictly heavier tracks are the ones that lean much more towards the heavier edge of the spectrum, really do feel sometimes a little bit more one-dimensional than tracks that open up and allow themselves to breathe a bit more. They can feel more like a run-of-the-mill progressive metalcore or Djent band, and I think that can be an issue at times on tracks like Scorpion Hymn, where, yes, I really do enjoy what JT does on this track, especially vocally, but as a whole, as a track, as an experience, I don't think that this track necessarily stands out among the rest, besides just being a bang your head off type of thing, and it will elicit those reactions and it will get people up off their feet moshing, but past that point when you put it down against everything else, I think it does measure up to be one of the weaker tracks. And with a longer track listing, there are times where something can drag on, whether it be a little minor idea, and this mostly just comes to personal preference and nitpicks, but things like Shadow Autonomous's end, where it sort of takes a while to really fade out. If you're gonna take a track on and make it that long and you're going to extend that ending out, at least do a little bit more to build up that atmosphere and build up that tension up until this point, because stylistically leading up to this point, I don't think there was inherently something that felt like it led to this moment. But as a whole, holy crap, all of the singles, the ender, tracks like Gungrave and Vanish Canvas, which boasts one of Jesse Cash's best vocal performances and most cracked registers in general, and it sounds so beautiful. It's a wonderful track. I love Vanish Canvas a lot. The way it is organized and orchestrated is just, it is chef's kiss in terms of just how good it sounds. It sort of rivals Gungrave in the sense of how well it's put together as a song. This is such an impressive record, and one that I enjoy a lot, not only as an Erra fan, but as a standalone Djent and metalcore and progressive metalcore fan. I think this just has all of the best qualities, and you can't really ask for better. This is one of those records that if you're a fan of the genre and you don't like this record, I genuinely cannot find what you would look for more in another record. For people that are looking to get into Erra, I think this is a very good starting point. And while I think there are better records than this, in my opinion, to really get you into them, namely Drift and Augment, this self-titled record is such a great point leading into the 2020s for them, and I cannot wait to see what UNFD holds for them in the future. JT and Jesse really set the bar even higher vocally, and production-wise, musically, thematically, I think this is a strikingly beautiful, vulnerable, and important record in their discography for numerous reasons. I really do enjoy this. I'm going to be giving this album an 8.5 out of 10. And that is a wrap. Have you heard this new self-titled Erra record? If you have, let me know in the comment section below what you thought about it. I would love to discuss this record with you. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is. My name is Jay Morris, the Review Guy, and I'm signing off saying farewell.